welcome to the World of Choices virtual event series, part of Junior Achievement Nova Scotia's programming. World of Choices Virtual is an interactive series that equips Nova Scotian students in grades 8 through 12 with the skills and knowledge they need to be better prepared for the future. Youth learn from passionate career mentors and engage in small group discussions about pursuing a skilled trades role. Today's event theme is digital craftsmanship. We're thrilled to have you join us as we dive into the exciting world of trades and how advancements in technology shape the industry. We're fortunate to have three incredible speakers who will share their expertise and experiences in their fields. They'll provide insights on technical skills and the power of new technologies and how combining them creates growth and innovation within their trades. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, where our relationship is based in peace and friendship. We also acknowledge that people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years, and we honor those ancestors who came before us to this land. We'd also like to give a thank you to our national supporting partners, Amazon, Avanade, Taco Bell Foundation, GM, KPMG, and CNA, as well as our local supporting partner, the Education and Early Childhood Development. Our first guest is Robert Coutinho, a drafter from BMR Structural Engineering. Shannon, take it away.
Good morning, Rob.
Hey, Shannon.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us again this year.
My pleasure.
So I understand you're here with us today from BMR. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so we're a structural engineering firm, and what that essentially means is that we work with architects and mechanical and electrical engineers to create buildings. So we mostly work on commercial projects, so that could be everything from the apartment buildings you see around town to box stores like your Sobeys and Walmarts, up through to schools, hospitals. We kind of work on everything outside of kind of your residential houses. And in working with architects and other engineers, our role as a structural firm is to create the skeleton for the building that helps support, the building to stand up.
That's awesome. It sounds like a really neat opportunity to be a part of a whole bunch of different projects going on at one time.
Yeah, so where we differ from other design firms is that, a typical architectural firm may be working on one or two projects at any given time. The scope of our work is a little more narrow. So to make up the same sort of workload and to bring in the same amount of money, we're working on about 10 times as many projects at any given time. So in a given month, I may have anywhere from 5 to 30 different projects that I'm managing.
A little bit of everything, hey. So Rob, what exactly is your role at BMR?
So in school, I studied to be a draftsman. My technical title would be, I guess, an engineering technician, but the role is more or less the same between firms, but the exact title can vary. What I specifically do is I work with the engineers in our office. So we'll get a set of plans for a building from an architectural firm. They'll do the hard math to figure out how to keep the building up. I then take their math and turn that into a set of drawings that shows the framing plan for the building. So we'll show columns, beams, all the supports, and whether it's concrete, steel. So my job is to basically put together drawings that show the contractor who's going to be building the building exactly how he needs to do that.
A bit of a translator between the engineers and those who are going to be physically on the ground doing the work.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay. So you mentioned that you went to college for this. Can you tell me a little bit more about that journey?
Yeah, so I had previously gone to university and I'd had some jobs relating to what I studied there, but nothing was really panning out for me in terms of a long-term career. So I decided to go back to school and go to NSCC. And I had an idea that this industry would be interesting to me, but I didn't exactly know where I'd end up. So there's a couple different options for becoming a drafter at NSCC. So they have a specific drafting program, but then they also have two other programs that you can get into, all of which are more or less, you know, tailored the same way, just slight variations in the courses you take, but they all ultimately end up leading you towards becoming a drafts person. So I did that, which was 2 years. And then at the end, everyone does a 5-week work term as part of their program. And the instructors at NCC were really helpful and great at helping, you know, get you set up, because they're all previous industry people. So they help find you a good spot for your work term. So just so happened, one of my teachers had previously worked at the firm I'm at now. So they had contacted him and said, "Do you have any students?" So he recommended me, and I never thought I'd be at a structural firm, but I did my work term here and loved it. They hired me on at the end, so here I am.
I like those stories. It's those connections really make a difference along the way. Now,
Definitely.
today is all about digital craftsmanship. Can you
Yep.
tell me a little bit about how the digital world and technology impacts your day-to-day work life?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. You know, when you start out in the program I did at NACC, they still teach you drafting by hand. It's not quite the same as you know, previous, but they still teach it to you. But pretty quickly you transition into digital drafting, which is pretty much the way it's done now. Um, so a lot of people are familiar or have heard at least of AutoCAD, which is the software I use a little bit. So it's basically drawing in 2D just on a computer. But the new software that's really come out is it's called BIM or Revit, and that's basically a 3D modeling software. So that's kind of become the standard now across the construction industry. So most of the drafting we do now, we're actually modeling things in 3D. At the end, we're still producing a 2D, you know, a drawing on paper that will go out to the contractor. But it's pretty neat to be able to kind of draw things in 3D and sort of see your building come to life in a 3D way on screens.
Yeah, it must be a big difference from that 2D space into the 3D space.
Definitely.
Now, we're speaking with youth and meeting with youth over this time about options for them, different ideas of what they could be when they grow up. So, if somebody's thinking about heading into the world of drafting right now, especially with the heavy digital components, what types of skills would you say they should be concentrating on developing while they're in school?
Um, I would say probably one of the most important aspects of this job and this industry is attention to detail. A lot of what we do is coordination and trying to make sure what we're doing works with what the architect's intent is and what the you know, other disciplines' intent is. Um, so the thing about drafting is that you kind of learn in school the basic skills, and they teach you how to use the software that we use on a day-to-day basis. Um, but that's something you can pick up pretty quickly, and then a lot of what you learn is, you know, job specific, and you kind of learn once you're starting your career. Um, but yeah, I would say attention to detail is probably one of the most important things you can hone. Yeah.
And what is a day in the life like? Like you got to work this morning. What's on your docket? What does it look like for you?
Sure. Well, I'd say probably about, you know, 10 to 15% of my day is probably like any other office job, you know, answering emails, attending meetings, so on and so forth. Um, the thing I like about my job is, so at my firm, there's 8 other people who have more or less the same role as me. However, all of our days can vary quite considerably. So there's definitely room where you can kind of carve out your own niche, and um, you know, if there's an aspect of the job you don't like, there's always different avenues you can go into. So for myself, I would say about 60 to 70% of the time I'm at my computer and I'm producing drawings for the various projects we're working on. The rest of the time I'm out in the field on site and checking on the progress of projects that are under construction, and doing reports on how construction is coming and making sure the work is being completed to what we specified. Now there's some people in the office who don't like leaving the office at all, so they're perfectly content just sitting at their computer and drawing all day. There's definitely opportunities to do that too. So depending on what your preferences are, there's definitely roles and opportunities to find the job that suits you best.
And you mentioned that you work with a structural firm.
That's correct, yeah.
And but there are also other opportunities for draft work.
Yeah, so I could have just as easily ended up at an architectural firm, or working for a mechanical firm. I could also, be working for the city. Halifax Water hires a lot of people with my background out of NSCC. Some people don't even really do a lot of drafting. They get into estimating, or project management. So there's a lot of different avenues you can go down, depending on what aspect of the educational program I did you like best. Yeah.
Now, I happen to have the inside knowledge that you just came back from a tech-based conference around your
yes.
field.
Yes.
What would you say is like one of the exciting pieces that's up and coming?
Well, one thing that our firm hasn't really adopted or looked into too much yet, but that seems to be ubiquitous across the board, is just artificial intelligence. So Autodesk is the company that makes the software that we use, both AutoCAD and Revit, but including a whole host of other products. So that was the conference I was at, and the one takeaway that they kept mentioning was that they're embracing AI, and they think it will help with workflow and help make our jobs easier, not replace me. So that was, I think, reassuring. Whether I believe it or not, we'll see.
I mean, I like human eyes on whether or not my building's going to fall down. I feel like this is a good thing.
Yeah. So yeah. So if the future of technology is something that students are interested in, our industry is the construction and design industry are definitely a part of that. So that's definitely interesting. I'd say the other takeaway, a couple of the keynote talks I went to specifically about construction. One of the things they mentioned is that right now, for every 4 people leaving the industry, there's only 1 replacing them, and that's across the board. Both people actually in the trades and people doing the design work. So if you're looking for an industry that has availability for jobs, this is definitely it.
Rob, is there any other words of wisdom that you want to impart today?
I guess the main thing would just be, definitely look at this as a potential career option, because I think a lot of people have maybe narrow views of what going to school and studying drafting means, but the opportunities are really endless, and there's a lot of different potential opportunities and avenues you can go down with studying this. So yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Rob. I really appreciate having you back this year.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
Back to you, Julie.
Thanks again, Robert, for sharing your experience today. Our second speaker is going to be Tom Stedison. He is a licensed auto technician from O'Regan's Mercedes-Benz and Sprinter. And O'Regan's Mercedes-Benz and Sprinter carries the entire lineup of new top-tier performing Mercedes-Benz models, including their Sprinter van line. They make customers their highest priority, allowing for the ultimate Mercedes-Benz experience every time customers are there. O'Regan's valued employees provide the quality repairs and quick, efficient maintenance that built the company's outstanding reputation. Their technicians are trained and certified to handle any automotive issue using authentic Mercedes Benz parts to complete the job.
Hi, Tom.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
No, it's my pleasure.
Not in the shop this year. We were happy to have you last year as well. And Tom joined us from his shop. Today he's joining us from a little bit more of an office type situation. But we also were talking about something a little bit different. So this year we're looking at digital craftsmanship. Now, Tom, I understand that you've been doing some work on a bunch of the new e-vehicles.
Yes, I would say my job is almost more electronic than it is mechanical these days, especially working at a new car dealership where we see the latest all-electric vehicles. There's more hybrid vehicles coming out as the demand has been increasing for them. And I spend the majority of my day between the computer that scans the vehicle, the computer that links to Mercedes-Benz itself, and my own work computer that has all the diagnostic information on it. So we are cars are rolling computers these days. So
they truly are. And I was going to say, would you say that even in your span of career, you've seen a drastic change?
yes, even in mine. So I've been doing this for 13 years, and even in that time, there were no hybrids or electric vehicles at Mercedes. I think there was one hybrid, but it was very rare. And it's to the point where half our showroom is pure electric cars, and every new Mercedes, with the exception of a few special ones, every new Mercedes is now a mild hybrid.
And what does that mean for your day-to-day work life?
Well, the shop has changed quite a bit. We've had to actually re-engineer the shop a bit. So we have a couple bays that are set up just for electric vehicles. They have all the high voltage equipment, all the high voltage safety equipment. We've had to uh, bring in all the diagnostic equipment for high voltage electronics. So traditionally cars were always 12-volt systems. Now they can be over 400-volt systems. So we've been learning the procedures for a lot of things that relate to even building electrical work, just where it's high voltage. And we
Yeah.
now do a lot of high voltage safety training with the manufacturer, and just the procedures for disconnecting, connecting, and testing high voltage components has changed a lot.
Now, let's step back for a minute. So how do you get from being somebody who's interested in, tinkering away with the car in the driveway through education into the point that you are now? Because that's a big
Well,
change.
that was very similar to my story. When I've always been a car nut, I've always loved tinkering. I started tinkering with cars I was about 17, 18 years old with friends at home in driveways, buying $500 cars and trying to fix them. And I didn't originally go into the trades. I originally graduated from high school and went to St. Mary's Commerce program. I did a few years of that. I did a couple placements at a bank and an investment house, and I really didn't like it. I didn't like school very much. I didn't like sitting down in an office all day. I didn't like being immobile. I always enjoyed working with my hands. So I decided to take the plunge and sign up for NSCC. And all I really needed to do that was a high school diploma. Um, and I was much, much happier. I got to work with my hands and learn physical skills and learn about cars at NSCC. And I went from a struggling university student to one of the top of my class at college because I just enjoyed what I did. And after doing core for 1 year at the Akerley College, I started a work placement with O'Regan's, not at their Mercedes-Benz dealership, but at their used car reconditioning facility. So I did that for a couple months, and after that, I was hired by them to start as a first-year automotive apprentice. And the rest is history. I worked through my apprenticeship, went back to school, completed my levels, and 4 years later wrote my Red Seal exam.
And along the way, in this transition from what would have traditionally been part of the auto tech industry and into this heavily electronic space, I imagine there's been a ton of training.
Yes, there has. You are not allowed to really even touch the electric vehicles until you've done the training because um,
See?
DC voltage up to about 60 volts is safe, especially for your heart. Once you're over 60 volts, it can be very dangerous. And the pure electric cars that are 400 volts can actually kill you on contact. So safety has and specific training is very, very important, and you have to complete it before you're allowed to um, start physically touching the electric components to diagnose them. So, for example, I mean, the heater is high voltage electricity, the air conditioning compressor is run by a high voltage motor. Of course, the battery pack, there's DC converter to knock down the 400 volts back down to 12 volts for the interior electronics. There's onboard chargers. And of course, there is, some people might recognize it, all the orange cables that run all over the car. Those are all high voltage. Orange is the standardized color for high voltage in automobiles. So for every model, new electric model that comes out, our training facility is in Toronto, Montreal, so we travel out there and learn the new model. And before we are allowed to work on what is considered a defective high voltage system, so let's say a high voltage battery that cannot be shut off by its breakers. It has to be physically disconnected while live. There is special training courses on that, and you have to wear a lot of equipment that a linesman would wear. So very thick insulated gloves, face shield for any arcing that would come from disconnecting and reconnecting high voltage electrical. You have a tether to be pulled away from the vehicle if needed. And it sounds a little scary, but all it really is just a lot of learning and precaution to know exactly what you're dealing with.
Yeah, safety first, right?
Yeah.
Now, outside of the high electrical, cars have become tech oriented.
Yes, heavily so. So the entertainment systems and the drive safety systems are very advanced now. So most cars have the ability to do quite a bit of self-driving where electric steering systems are computer controlled. They generally, most of them have radar sensors, have cameras. Of course, higher end cars have more than others and can enable some form of self-driving. So there's a lot of work with camera calibrations, radar sensor calibrations on the front, sides, and rear of vehicles. The entertainment systems are all connected online, so a lot of cars connect to cell phone towers for Wi-Fi. They, of course, interact with all different types of smartphones. There are cameras inside a lot of vehicles now that detect hand motions, so they can watch you and detect your hand motions, so you don't have to physically touch a button anymore. You can train your car to change the radio settings by making certain swipe motions. And of course, behind the trim of the car is an enormous amount of electronics to do all these functions. So the screen is just a screen these days, and then there'll be separate hard drives, separate control units. Wireless devices. A lot of cars will have multiple antennas. So an antenna for Bluetooth, an antenna for cell phone signal, an antenna for satellite navigation. So you have 3 or 4 antennas in the car and control units for that. And all of it interacts with the customer interface, interacts with your cell phone, and also has to communicate with the physical driving control units of the car. So your brake system, your steering system, and of course your engine system.
They're becoming big AI computers on wheels.
A little bit, yeah. I think they
Now,
still prefer to keep the AI in the driver's head for now, but
I like
what you
that
see
plan.
with things like the automated taxis that are starting to emerge, the AI is starting to work its way into vehicles.
Yeah. So now that the world of traditional mechanics and the world of tech are really starting to blend together, what recommendations would you make for youth looking to head into this field?
Well, the recommendation is still what I like most about this trade is it's not all physical, it's not all mental, and it's not all electronics. It's a nice balance of all three. So on a certain day, I can do a purely mechanical engine repair or a suspension repair, and then the next vehicle I can be doing something with the entertainment system, something with looking at problems with its software and connecting the car with the automaker on the line, investigating the software fault, or it can be looking at a high voltage electronic system, say if the heater is not working and diagnosing that why. So my recommendation is to have an interest. If you have an interest in not just electronics, but mechanical things, it might be a excellent trade for you. And it certainly is what I like most about it. It never gets boring, and it has a wide variety of mental and physical skill sets attached to it.
And it sounds like a sense of curiosity, that desire to solve a puzzle would be really valuable.
Yes, it's what gives me my greatest job satisfaction is solving puzzles and problems, because every day you've got people and vehicles coming in with new and different problems, and you have to be the investigator and figure out what's causing the problem, how you're going to fix it, and when you do accomplish the repair, it's great job satisfaction knowing you took something that's causing the customer stress and returning the vehicle repair and working again because of what you figured out and what you did.
Are there any other words of wisdom you'd like to share today, Tom?
Yeah, I would. A lot of people, especially from older TV shows or movies, see auto repair as pretty dirty, greasy, and they don't give it the credit it deserves for how modern it is now. Generally, is done in very clean facilities. Cars are not the old greasy things they once were. They still use engine oils and transmission fluids, but gone are the days where every job you're doing in the auto shop is a mechanical dirty job. You do those sometimes, maybe a quarter of the time, versus all the modern technology you get to deal with, which is nice because it is easier on your body long term. It's more mentally stimulating, and it's cleaner.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Tom. I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning.
No, it's my pleasure.
And are you off to the shop now?
Yeah, time to head to work. Hopefully traffic has subsided and I can get there a little quicker.
Well, you have a wonderful day.
You as well.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye-bye.
So, our third and final speaker today is Jeff Harding. He's an instrumentation and controls tech from AEM Limited. AEM was founded in 1985 and spent a decade working towards specialization in system installation, service, and automation. They utilize their knowledge of heating and cooling systems and combine it with the best available control technologies to create the most energy efficient buildings in their local market. AEM introduced energy audits and now actively performs them in many buildings. This allows AEM to provide support services and innovative technologies which use less energy to make buildings run more efficiently. Shannon, back to you.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I am great. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us again this year with our World of Choices. This year, today specifically, we're talking about digital craftsmanship. Now, I understand that the digital world is a good portion of yours on a day-to-day basis.
It is, yes.
Would you say, so tell me a little bit, actually, let's start with some background. What led you to a space where you are doing automation?
So I'm a construction electrician by trade. I'm also an IT networking guy. I went to school for that in Ontario. So those two combinations was a big part of this. And it really helps me in my field of programming and making all this HVAC and electronics, lighting, automation, system integration, all this stuff, putting it all together and making it all work.
So you've taken a trade, the electrical trade in this case, but I'm assuming also potentially the HVAC trade, those types of things, combined it with an interest and knowledge around how computers work, how the IT system works, and smash them together. Does that sound right?
Yep, correct. We are basically little computers that we put together and make everything work.
When you talk about everything, so let's say you're working on a big project, would it be a home or would it be a commercial space?
Majority of our work is all commercial. We also do industrial as well, but that's not my realm. I do commercial. Like for example, right now we're doing a hockey rink and we're doing all the stuff for the rink. So we're running all the process to make the ice and the heating and the air conditioning for the space itself. So there's lots of different parts of it.
So you mentioned stuff like controlling ice temperature, controlling the space temperature. Now, does automation also include stuff like the lighting or the cameras, that type of thing?
Yep. So one big thing that we can do is we can integrate and put everything together. And a big part of it is a big fancy graphic package. So we will take your building and we control your heating, your air conditioning. We make it energy efficient. We can do your card access. We can do your cameras, put it all on some fancy graphics so that somebody, no matter where they are in the world, they can look at their building and see how it's doing. They can see the energy, what it's using, what it's not using, that kind of stuff. Change schedules, all of it.
That sounds like a big network of tangly wires everywhere.
Basically, yes.
So, what does a day in your life look like? You mentioned that you're working on a hockey rink right now. What does that look like and feel like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so as a senior programmer, big part of my job is obviously doing the programming, making everything work. So part of my day will be in the office, working remotely, doing the programming. But then another big part of my job is that I get to get out of the office and I go to site and I have to test all these points to make sure they all work, make sure valves open, close, temperature sensors are reading correctly. So I spend a lot of time in the field as well. So it's not just sitting behind a computer in an office somewhere.
So it's
And
that
we,
good balance, like what Tom was talking about in one of our previous sessions around the opportunity to do some of the, I think Rob spoke about it as well, getting out into the field,
yep,
sometimes being at the desk, sometimes being able to flex your work life balance in that way.
yep. And the nice thing about our job is that we interact with most of the trades on a job site. So you get to learn a little bit about everything. Excuse me. You learn a little bit of everything of how buildings operate. And we deal with the electrical trade, the plumbing trade, the mechanical trade, the HVAC, all of it.
Okay, so you're getting a really broad picture of what's going on in a space in order to provide the end user with something that's really practical.
Yes, correct.
So, Jeff, we're talking with youth today about options for their future, different, a world of choices that they can entertain and choose from. What recommendations would you give to a youth considering this world of automation, this energy efficiency space heading forward?
Yeah, so the most difficult part about my job is that there isn't really a whole lot of post-secondary courses. So different courses can help out, like instrumentation is a course that can definitely help you out. HVAC technician can help you out. Computers themselves, so any computer related course, programming, networking, and of course also the electrical field. A lot of stuff we do is all electrical based, so having a background as an electrician can definitely help as well, and does help.
So, so you're saying that right now, if a youth is really interested in heading into this, they need to go in and connect with the trade first. And then this is a learning opportunity once they're further into the trade.
For sure, for sure. And a company like AEM, we have so many different people in the company that if you do come with us and decide that programming is not for you, then we have HVAC technicians, we have installers, you know, obviously all the office staff. So there's lots of different versions in this field.
That's a really interesting piece you bring up about working in this field, working in this space doesn't mean you're doing any one thing in particular, and that there's opportunities for change and growth. You mentioned you started as an electrician and then took a passion for computers and turned it into a programming piece. Is there training along the way or opportunities for work study, any of that type of thing for youth who are thinking about that?
There's tons of courses. I have taken tons of courses online. There's lots of courses, lots of our, so we deal with a lot of Honeywell products, Reliable Controls product, which is a Canadian company based out of BC. And they offer lots of different courses as well. And you don't have to be in the field to necessarily take some of these courses to learn a little bit more about it. So there's lots of opportunity.
Along the way. I just had another question and it completely escaped my mind, but it was something along the lines of growing in an organization. So we haven't touched base yet today, and so maybe this is the place where I can and touch base about it is the opportunity to participate in a co-op or in a work term. Is that something that the automations industry welcomes?
Oh, 100%. We've had high school co-op program, and we've also had college co-op programs. So if you're taking any of the high school co-ops, feel free to reach out. We'll get you a little bit of experience on everything from the programming side to the service side to the installer side, whatever you want to learn. And same as the college. It's the best way to learn because you get to go out in the field, you get to see different parts of the job and really decide if it's something you want to do.
And many different trade spaces and companies who work in the trades offer these types of experiences. So it's something really valuable to pick up along the way. Jeff, do you have any other words of wisdom for youth today?
Yep. The HVAC and controls, it's a huge industry right now because every new building that's going up that has to be energy efficient according to the government. So our industry is not going anywhere. Every one of these buildings that go up, we're involved somehow in it. So it's a great career. We're always learning. If you like new technology, we're always learning new technology. So there's lots of opportunity to learn and play with new technology and things all the time. So
New tech, new equipment, new little finagly tools. Thank you for your time this morning, Jeff. I appreciate you joining us to touch base with youth today on our world of choices in digital craftsmanship.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
So I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for joining us for the World of Choices virtual event. We've been given a snapshot of your unique roles and how technology really impacts them. And we hope that everyone watching is leaving with a deeper understanding about opportunities that future generations can explore for a dynamic career. And last but not least, we want to give another thank you to our sponsors, as their support makes World of Choices possible. We truly appreciate everyone's participation and wish you a great rest of your days.
And one quick note, today is number 1 of 9 World of Choices virtual opportunities this year. So please join us as we meet with dozens of other members of the trades industry and the surrounding network to help us explore the world of choices for you.